Today, we will talk about a case that has turned the whole state upside down and caused an absolute media sensation. For about a week, this case has been all the talk in the Georgia media, and that's because it has that perfect blend of circumstances that makes almost every fact about it another opportunity for a whirlwind of stories. We have love and we have tragedy. We have weddings. And we have kidnappings, and in the end, we are all left heartbroken and questioning why anyone is able to go this far. So without further ado, this is the case of Jennifer Wilbanks. And buckle up, this is gonna be a ride full of twists and turns. Hi, welcome back to the Dark Motives channel. We cover all things relating to crime stories here, so if that's your thing, then look no further, because you've come to the right place for another good dose of crime. Jennifer Wilbanks was born on March 27, 1973 in Gainesville, Georgia, in United States of America. She was sweet, full of life, and had a typical childhood that most people experience. There were no real turning points or extraordinary events that would mark her entire life and give people the impression that something would happen to her later that would be discussed by the whole world. But that's exactly what happened. In 2005, Jennifer was 32 years old and preparing for the next beautiful chapter of her life. She had a fiancé, John Mason, and in a few days they were to walk down the aisle together at their dream wedding. It was to be a grand ceremony, magnificent and lavish. Jennifer had her dress and flowers ready and was looking forward to showing off her new husband to the more than 600 guests who had been invited. It was a wedding to be remembered. She had 28 people in her wedding entourage alone, which, by the way, is almost the total number of guests at my own wedding. I don't think I even know 600 people, let alone know them well enough to attend my wedding. But Jennifer did, and it got to the point where in about 3 days she was going to throw a wedding that everyone would remember for a long time. But it's not for nothing they say man plans and the devil laughs. And that spring, the devil had a pretty good hold on the people of Georgia. On April 26, 2005, John Mason came home from work expecting his evening to go pretty much like any other. But this evening was about to turn into a night John would surely like to forget. Jennifer was known to love jogging, so it wasn't unusual for her to go for a short run in the evening. Now she had more reason than ever. She wanted to look fit, healthy, and beautiful in her wedding dress. When John returned home, he found the house empty. At first it didn't look like anything unusual, but then he discovered a note that seemed to have been written by Jennifer. The note said she needed some space. That was all. She didn't mention where she was going or how long she'd be gone. All of her personal belongings, jewelry, and papers were left in place. Only her running clothes and shoes were missing. So John figured that Jennifer was just out for a run, or maybe visiting some friends or family, or maybe she just needed the afternoon to herself. He continued with his evening program, but as the minutes turned into hours and there was still no sign of Jennifer, he began to worry. It wasn't like her to just take off and disappear, and whenever he called someone to ask if she was with him, the answer was always no. 2 hours passed without any news, and John's stomach clenched. He wasted no more time and called the police. He told them that Jennifer hadn't returned from her evening run and that he was worried about her. The police took his claim seriously, but after learning that John and Jennifer were to be married in a few days, they concluded that it was possible that Jennifer's disappearance was just a case of premarital jitters. They told John not to worry too much and that they were sure Jennifer would turn up on her own sooner or later. John was relieved to hear this, but the evening had turned to night and night to day, and there was still no sign that Jennifer was coming home. Her case has gained momentum. Investigators were now faced with a situation where she had been gone for nearly 24 hours, and no one, not her family, friends, or fiancé, had any message from her, even just a voicemail. Things were starting to look serious, and it was beginning to look like this story was going to be much more sinister than a simple case of someone falling for a lifetime commitment on the eve of a wedding. Investigators, officials, and volunteers searched the area. They put up flyers and posters about the missing person, even paid for billboards along major roads and highways with details about Jennifer. The media went to work and published Jennifer's face in all the major news outlets. The whole world seemed to come together in an effort to bring Jennifer home to her loved ones. And why not? It was a completely unfortunate set of circumstances, every bride and groom's nightmare. In just 3 days, John and Jennifer were about to walk down the aisle together and begin the rest of their lives in a perfect fairy tale wedding, like a scene cut out of a Disney story. But now Jennifer was nowhere to be found. I can't even imagine what was going through John's mind. He must have been absolutely devastated. I know I wouldn't have known what to do, and I would just have tried my best not to collapse every 5 minutes. And I can't even imagine what it must be like to lose the love of your life. But John lost her right before their big day. It wasn't like she was lost on an ordinary Tuesday. He had to call over 600 guests, the venue, the caterer. He had to call the florist, the photographer, everyone you can think of in connection with the wedding planning, everyone who had anything to do with the wedding, and tell them that Jennifer was missing. Imagine what that must have been like for him. Imagine having to tell hundreds of people that your fiancé is missing, and you have no idea where she is, what happened to her, or if she'll ever come back. It was a very dark time in John's life, but the people around him seemed to be doing what they could to bring Jennifer home. The mayor of Duluth, where John and Jennifer lived, later said the city spent about $40,000 to $60,000 during the search for Jennifer. Unfortunately, much of that money went to following false leads and leads that led to dead ends. That's one of the downsides of a case that's garnering so much attention. More eyes watching an investigation does not always lead to better or more accurate results, and that is unfortunately what happened in this case. The entire city of Duluth willingly assisted in the search, and several misleading tips came in. Someone found large clumps of dark brown hair near a local pond. Whenever someone found abandoned clothing, they reported it. Someone even claimed to believe they had just found an object that could be the murder weapon, even though this case was just a case of disappearance. All these leads led nowhere, and in the end, Jennifer was still missing. On April 28th, just 2 days after it all began, Major Donald L. Woodruff of the Duluth City Police Department made a startling statement. In his official statement, he announced that they had no leads to investigate and no possible explanation for Jennifer's disappearance. The Duluth Police Department was officially in over its head and turned the investigation over to the FBI and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, also known as the GBI. Within the next 24 hours, however, there was to be a major break in the case. But it did not come from the FBI or the GBI. It came from Jennifer herself. On April 29th, the day before her planned wedding, Jennifer's family and friends were desperate. Even though they were all supposed to be preparing for her fairy tale wedding, they were out on the streets still looking for a bride. They tried to keep the media attention and raise interest in Jennifer's case. So they held various rallies and talked to the media, but the public had all the more reason to work so hard. Jennifer's loved ones have been spreading the word that they are now personally offering a $100,000 reward for anyone who provides information that leads them to Jennifer. They weren't going to stop, and they weren't going to give up until Jennifer was home. Then everyone was stunned when Jennifer herself called the emergency line and asked for help. Distraught and in a panic, she told the 911 operators that she had just escaped her kidnappers and needed to be picked up. Yes, that's right. Just days before her wedding, Jennifer went out for an evening run and was abducted by unknown people. She told the operator that a man of Hispanic descent and a woman of Caucasian descent captured her, took her away in a blue van, and just drove around for the days she was missing and kept her in that van and did nasty things to her. Then they pulled over, let her go, and drove off in the van, leaving Jennifer behind. By sheer coincidence, she managed to find a phone booth outside a 7-Eleven, but that was about all she knew. When asked where the people had gone, Jennifer replied, "I have no idea. I don't even know where I am." Although the information was sketchy, it was confirmed that Jennifer was fine. Dispatchers were able to trace her call to a payphone in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is roughly 20 hours away and more than 1,400 miles from where she disappeared in Duluth. It had been a long and exhausting few days for everyone involved. But finally, it looked like Jennifer had a chance to come home. Local police immediately went on the road to bring her back, while her family publicly thanked the media for spreading the word. The family was convinced that the perpetrators were frightened by the extensive media coverage and believed that without this pressure, Jennifer would never have been released and could not have returned home safely. After a few hours, Jennifer was finally back in Duluth, but she was still a long way from the fairy tale ending. The wedding kept getting delayed because instead of getting dressed and walking down the aisle, Jennifer had to sit at the local police station and tell the FBI and GBI exactly what had happened to her. No one saw Jennifer disappear, and no one saw her reappear. It was more than likely that the perpetrators would one day be brought to justice only because of the information Jennifer herself would provide to investigators. Jennifer has had to embark on the daunting task of reliving some of her most difficult moments, which can be very difficult, especially if the person reliving them in their thoughts is completely making them up. Yes, that's right. The investigators asked for too many details, and Jennifer made a mistake and spilled the beans. After all the worry, after all the hours and money spent looking for her, after the media descended on Duluth and shined the spotlight on her family and John, Jennifer finally admitted to FBI agents at the police station that it was all a lie. The whole thing was made up. Her disappearance, the blue van, the Hispanic man with the bad teeth, the slightly overweight white woman, and the songs they listened to in the car. It was all one big long lie that Jennifer eventually got completely tangled up in. But why would she do that? Why did she cause her family, friends, and fiancé so much pain and worry? Jennifer admitted that she felt under immense pressure about her upcoming grand wedding and simply wanted to run away. Yes, what the local police said at the beginning, that it was probably pre-wedding jitters, turned out to be true. Jennifer was just scared of making such a big commitment, and instead of handling it the right way, if there is a right way, but you know what I mean, it's just possible to handle things without the whole city and then the state. 3 investigative agencies looking for her. Something along those lines. So instead of talking to John and telling him she was worried and didn't feel like it anymore, Jennifer ran off and pretended she had been kidnapped. Needless to say, there were many people who were really angry with Jennifer Wilbanks, now referred to as the Runaway Bride. And there were many people who wanted her to pay for all the pain and panic she caused. Jennifer may have sensed this and quickly changed her statement. Now she wasn't kidnapped or running away from her own wedding, but left because of personal issues. In this new version of the story, Jennifer withdrew $40 from her bank account and called a taxi to take her to the Greyhound carrier terminal, where she took one bus to Las Vegas and then to Albuquerque. All for personal reasons. Well, I probably don't need to tell you that it didn't really help Jennifer, and it didn't change the way she was perceived in the public eye. It made her seem worse. Overnight, Jennifer went from a survivor that everyone sympathized with to a laughingstock. But the local authorities saw something more in Jennifer's story. Sure, brides and grooms are sometimes reluctant and cancel weddings, but most of them don't cause a national scandal or come up with kidnapping stories. Many also don't get on 2 buses and end up more than 1,400 miles from home and then ask to be picked up. No, there was something else going on with Jennifer, and local authorities thought she really needed help. On May 9th, she was admitted to a local treatment facility to, quote, to address the physical and psychological problems that she believes played a major role in her running away from herself. Yes, Jennifer told investigators that she believed there was something wrong with her mental health. And after everything she did and the media circus she caused, they believed her. A week later, on May 17th, she officially broke off her engagement to John Mason. Believe it or not, John didn't break up with Jennifer as soon as she came back and admitted that she had been lying to him all along. No, John stayed with her and supported her as much as he could for the next few months. He stood by her while many others would have preferred to walk away and distance themselves from this whole strange situation, but not John. He didn't turn away from Jennifer. He hadn't broken up with her, hadn't called off the engagement, and continued to support her even as her situation continued to get worse. About a week after Jennifer called off their engagement, she finally faced some consequences for everything she had caused. John may have been able to forgive Jennifer for what she had done, but that didn't mean the rest of the world would forgive her too. She was officially charged with making false statements to investigating authorities, and that was a crime for which she faced a prison sentence of 4 to 5 years. Lying to friends and family is not a crime. It is morally wrong, but not illegal. However, this is not the case when lying to official investigating authorities, especially when they have just spent thousands of dollars searching for you and even more money, time, and manpower, searching for the alleged kidnappers upon your return. Added to all this was the huge media circus the situation turned into after she was officially labeled a runaway bride. So the authorities had to respond somehow. Jennifer wasted precious and limited resources by running away, and even more were wasted when she subsequently lied to save face. If another runaway bride or groom had been given a similar idea, then the county would have wasted even more money and resources. It was clear that they needed to make an example of Jennifer, so they put her on trial. Jennifer, with her faithful John by her side the whole time, tried to mitigate the consequences of her actions by admitting to making false statements. The court ordered her to pay $13,000 to the city, which was only a third of the total amount the authorities had spent to find her. It was more of a symbolic gesture, and therefore the amount was not very high. Jennifer may not have gone to jail, but many were glad to at least partially make up for the damage she had caused to her hometown. She was also given probation for 2 years and 250 hours of community service. That was enough for the local cops, who were satisfied that Jennifer had at least somehow received punishment for all the chaos she had caused. But Jennifer was about to laugh in everyone's face, including those who decided on her relatively light sentence. When I said that the media frenzy surrounding Jennifer's disappearance had turned into a complete circus, I meant it. Every day there was a new piece of information or a twist in her story, and everyone wanted to take a bite out of the sensation. On one side, more and more details of Jennifer's past were emerging. It turned out that she had been arrested several times in the 1990s for shoplifting and breaking into stores. Some of the incidents had been quite minor, like the time she stole just $37 worth of merchandise. However, there was also a case where she stole about $1,700 worth of items from a shopping mall. She was even accused of stealing from people who hired her to babysit their children. And then it turned out that she was actually engaged to another man before she got engaged to John. But that engagement ended before the wedding preparations even began. But that wasn't all. On the other hand, there was more and more speculation about what might have inspired Jennifer to make her dramatic escape just before the wedding. At first, various conspiracy theories began to circulate. For example, when Dr. Sanjay Gupta appeared on Anderson Cooper's 360 and stated that in his opinion Jennifer was suffering from Graves' disease. This autoimmune disorder, which affects the thyroid gland, he said, could explain her extreme reactions to stress and the wild look in her eyes. And then there was the merch. Yes, Jennifer Wilbanks was the inspiration for the action figure. And that's no joke. The figure was named Runaway Bride and was a dark-haired doll dressed in jogging pants and a t-shirt that read Vegas Baby. It was sold on the HeroBuilders.com website for approximately $25 each. The figurine also had the striped towel that Jennifer tried to cover her face with after the police brought her to Duluth. The owner of HeroBuilders.com, Emil Vicale, said it was just an incredible story and that they had over 1 million hits on their site in one day and that it had never happened before. But the dolls were really just the beginning. The like-minded carnival ride continued when Jennifer-inspired merch went from figurines to hot sauces. Jennifer's hightail in hot sauce was being sold at Pappy's Peppers in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and the owner, Pappy David Ryan, said it was literally the hottest thing he has right now. He humorously claimed that the sauce could cure cold feet. Quite a nice pun, don't you think? And then, it got even more absurd. A slice of toast with a very crudely sketched picture of Jennifer was sold on eBay for a whopping $15,400. You could tell it didn't even look that much like her. It didn't resemble her that much. But still, over 100 bids came in for this piece of toast with her portrait on it. I should add that the winner of the auction ultimately refused to pay, but it still shows the huge interest. Books appeared, plays, even musicals. Everyone wanted a piece of Jennifer's story, and while Jennifer hadn't yet benefited directly, it wasn't to stay that way forever. This media attention made Jennifer a hot topic, and she and John managed to sell their story to New York agent Judith Regan for $500,000. That's right, Judith Regan bought the rights to their story for $500,000. Judith herself later told the press, "Their story is an unexpected and compelling story of love and forgiveness that definitely taught me something." Jennifer had just made a tidy sum of money, but she didn't return any of it to the local authorities to cover the cost of the search. When local mayor Shirley Lasseter found out about the deal, speaking to reporters, she said, "I think it's a shame that someone could have made a profit on this." I have to say I agree with her. But at least we can say that what's meant to happen will happen. If anything can split a couple, it's definitely money. John has stood by Jennifer through thick and thin. He stayed when no one else would, but when the money came in, Jennifer smelled an opportunity. About a year and a half after they were to have their grand wedding, Jennifer sued John. Yes, after everything that happened, Jennifer decided to sue John. She claimed that while she was in the hospital under heavy medication, John gained full power over their joint assets, including the rights to their story. Jennifer accused John of selling their story to Judith Regan without her knowledge and using the money from the deal to buy a house. However, he did not put her name on the deed, and when their relationship eventually broke down, John kicked her out of the house. Jennifer now sought $250,000 for her share of the house and another $250,000 in damages. That's right. After all, Jennifer wanted the full $500,000 for herself. John responded by countersuing for the emotional distress he suffered because Jennifer disappeared just before their wedding, and who could blame him? Both lawsuits were withdrawn about a year later, but I have not been able to find out what agreement they finally reached. But that still wasn't the end of their story. John eventually found happiness again and got married in 2008. He met his future wife through an old high school classmate who happened to be her cousin. They were married in a modest ceremony conducted by John's father in the house where John grew up, and the two are said to be happily married to this day. But Jennifer herself would make headlines yet again in 2010. This time, Jennifer had a lot of stories to tell us, and as it happens with her, it was all kind of for effect. Jennifer got a lot of attention by declaring personal bankruptcy. Yes, after reportedly signing a $500,000 deal with an agent and selling the rights to her story, she found herself broke. As far as I could trace, John and Jennifer entered into the contract together, and each was to receive $250,000 for their own account. John bought the house with his share, but Jennifer later wanted it for herself. So much for the explanation. Jennifer wasn't just broke. In addition, she was now officially over $30,000 in debt and had absolutely nothing. She was forced to live in her boyfriend's house and live off the allowance he was providing for her. Did you catch that? Yes. Exactly. Jennifer had a new boyfriend. His name was Greg Hudson, a twice-married, twice-divorced businessman who owned a landscaping and gardening company. According to a post Jennifer later posted on Facebook, she and Greg had been secretly dating since 2009 and were now living together. They eventually got married, and Jennifer actually made it to the altar this time, but this story didn't end happily either. In 2021, they managed to successfully divorce relatively quietly, but let's face it. Jennifer's name was in the news again for yet another scandalous twist in her new relationship status. She's been pretty quiet since then, and as far as I know, she's making a living as a director at a staffing agency in Gainesville. But her story remains. For some, this is a cautionary tale. They believe that Jennifer's extreme reaction, where she shied away from entering into marriage, is more evidence of social pressure to settle down and get married. They believe it highlights the importance of mental health issues and the need for better support for people suffering from mental illness. For others, it is a prime example of all that is wrong with contemporary society. They see in it a woman who selfishly wastes precious resources only to profit greatly from it. Others just see it as a really fun story. The Albuquerque Police Department, which picked up Jennifer after she called 911, used Jennifer and the uproar over her name to help recruit new recruits. 2 years after Jennifer was charged, the Albuquerque Police Department used a picture of a bride in a wedding dress, being arrested by a police officer as part of its new marketing campaign. Running away from your current job? The ad said. Call the Albuquerque Police Human Resources Department. The police officer in this commercial was Trish Hoffman, the real police officer in the now infamous photo of Jennifer after her arrest. In the picture, Jennifer covers her head with a brightly colored towel as Trish Hoffman leads her through the service station. Even 2 years later, both women, Jennifer and Trish, were still considered local celebrities enough to have such a media campaign built around them. And let's face it, the ad was pretty funny. Trish Hoffman, now a sergeant, later in 2017 released a statement about her opinion of the whole story, saying, "When you look at the big picture, it only hurt her and her family. I hope they are better off today than they were then." I have to agree with that, although I think it is really sad and shameful that Jennifer has used up so many resources just because she couldn't cope with a difficult situation. People go missing every day, and many of them are in real danger. The money the city spent on finding her could have been used to help those who really needed it, and perhaps even to return these people home. I think she should have paid the city back, especially since she got $500,000 for selling her story. Or $250,000. What's even $40,000 total when you have $250,000? Even if she only ended up getting half, just $250,000 and John the rest, I still think it would have been the right thing to do. And that even then, she should have given it all back, not just the $13,000. And then add to that the fact that she tried to sue John. I can't imagine where anyone gets the nerve. The man stayed with her, even went to court with her to support her, and she ended up suing him. Even if he actually sold the rights to their story and bought a house with the money, which the jury still didn't even know, I think she owed him something for everything he went through for her. If it were me, I'd just keep my mouth shut and let him keep it. After all, he had to cancel the entire wedding just days before it was to take place, and then he found out his fiancé had eloped. Jennifer's family held a vigil, and everyone slowly accepted the worst, and then she came back and sued John for money. That's just not cool. But enough about my opinion. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you have a different take on whether Jennifer got what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to look around my channel for more true crime stories. Today's one was more on the lighter side, but we have darker and more disturbing stories and mysteries. So if you're interested, check out my channel and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love a like. That's all from me for today. When you leave, remember to lock your doors and keep in mind that every murderer is someone's neighbor. See you later.